The made-in-Chelsea star Louise Thompson spent years on the covers of plenty of health magazines.
But everything changed in 2021 when the birth of her beautiful baby boy, Leo, took a devastating turn.
Yeah, Louise suffered a traumatic labour that triggered a chain of catastrophic health problems, including almost losing her life twice.
As she bravely opens up about her experience in her best-selling book, Lucky, here it is. Louise is joining us now. Good morning to you.
Morning.
Good morning. Lovely to have you here on the sofa. As I was reading this, quite often within medicine and human beings, things go wrong. Obviously, we're just human beings and, you know, medical staff don't always get it right. But the catalogue of events that happened and the catalogue of things that went wrong to you, I don't know how you're sitting here describing it and how you write about it so eloquently.
Well, thank you. And I do feel very lucky to still be here.
Yeah.
Because there really was such a horrendous cascade of events, you know, taking it right back to the beginning. And as you say, I was one of the healthiest people I knew. I'd done the cover of Women's Health twice. It was my bread and butter, you know. I lived and breathed fitness. And I'd never really stepped foot into a hospital before. And then, yes, I gave birth to my son 3.5 years ago, and my world was literally turned upside down. I knew, you know, I think women know their bodies, and we have this intuition. And I really knew that the childbirth thing wasn't going to be a walk in the park for me. I have a very small body, my partner's very big, and I did have some anxiety around that. And I kept trying to advocate for myself, to speak up, to say, I really want to have a planned C-section. I'd been involved in a nasty house fire before giving birth about a month out. And I wasn't feeling well. Like, it's tough. Like, childbirth is incredibly tough. And being pregnant is very tough for women. We go through a lot. And I just felt like I wasn't listened to, and I had to jump through a lot of hoops, and there wasn't a great, you know, level of continuity of care. And so I was just met with a lot of resistance. And then I kind of succumbed to my fate, and I ended up not being able to deliver my baby naturally, and I ended up in theatre. And I think one of the most horrendous things about this whole experience, which is what has left me with a lot of lasting damage that I talk a lot about in the book, with all of the PTSD and also suffering with, you know, horrendous anxiety that's sort of brought into that, and depression too, was having to witness 3.5 hours of surgery awake.
Yeah.
I just wish that I had been put to sleep.
Yeah.
Because sadly, you know, I've had to have subsequent emergency surgeries, and, you know, it was only a week after I was then discharged home following that surgery without much of an explanation as to what had happened. I mean, it's a lot to process.
Yes, yes.
And then I had a massive obstetric hemorrhage 2 days later.
Which was the second one you'd actually had.
Yes. So in the original surgery, I lost 3.5 litres, and then in the second I lost 5.5 litres, which is a lot. I mean, I probably only have about 5 litres of blood in my body, given my weight. And it just, you know, it's crazy how long it can take to actually process all of it. But the book, for me, has been a big part of that. And there were times early on when I found myself, when I was finally discharged from hospital after spending a large chunk of time there, where I couldn't really function. I couldn't connect with my son. And I just didn't recognise my life. And writing, for me, was such a kind of cathartic process. And it was the only way I could communicate with people, really.
Yeah.
The interesting thing, hearing you talk about what you have been through, there's a sort of irony to the fact that the book's called Lucky. You know, because he sounds anything but lucky. And I love the story about why you've called it Lucky. And actually that you're starting to appreciate the value of where you are and that you have Leo now and your life is still going, and what you've been through, that maybe you do feel a bit lucky finally. I
do. And, you know, I've spent a bunch of time in hospital, and there are definitely people that are much less lucky than me. And I do feel really privileged to have come out the other side. You know, I have my working brain again. I can think straight. I've got an amazing relationship with my son. And so there are loads of hopeful messages in the book. I kind of go through the whole thing of I felt like I lost a lot of my old self, especially during those, like, first couple of years throughout the recovery. And I've gradually been piecing the jigsaw back together, making sense of everything. And now, you know, it was, yes, someone that I mentioned in the book, this guy, when we finally managed to get away on holiday. And this guy said, I sort of was just making almost a joke of like, everything that happened to me. And he was like, wow, you're really lucky. And if anyone had said that to me even 6 months prior, I would have been actually quite upset. I was like, gosh, it completely reframed it in my head. You know, I live in this country, you know, I live close to a hospital, and I've had access to some incredible care and met some incredible people along the way. And it's opened my eyes. You know, my perspective on life is very different now. Like, you know, it's not the way that you want to have to learn those lessons about life, but yeah.
But I guess you do very much start to seize the day and appreciate friends and appreciate family. And I know that Leo is just gorgeous, and I'm guessing how much you absolutely love him now that you've got the PTSD under control, because that was one of the biggest things. And what I found so sad about the book was you managed to cope with all the physical stuff, and then mentally that took over, and little Leo was this living, breathing incarnation of reminding you of these terrible things.
Exactly that. I mean, it was awful that he was re-traumatising me when I was at home and I was sort of in the same space as him, under the same roof. I just have memories now of... So a lot of it is a blur because your brain just tries to shut it out. But I have memories of just holding him and looking up, and as he was crying, and I would just look up at the sky, and honestly, I would just pray. And I'd go, take all of this pain away, like this mental and physical torture. But yeah, the mental stuff was a lot worse than, you know, physical... You can often fix a physical problem. You can diagnose a physical problem a lot more easily, but it was the mental torture that was really hard to grapple with, because there's no... You can't go in and get treated.
You can't fix it.
You can't fix it. So, you know, there are medications, and I did an awful lot of therapy, and I was considering going to a mother and baby unit and going to other facilities. But I think that would have just prolonged the recovery, because if I'd stepped away from my son, I might have got better on my own, like in my own kind of cold, dark, private cell, and then go back.
You've had great support from Ryan too, I think, as well.
I feel very, very grateful to have a partner.
Yeah.
We spoke to the Chelsea and Westminster Hospital because obviously you've been through this catalogue of things, and this is what they said: the health and well-being of those in our care is an absolute priority. It's right that we recognise when this care doesn't meet the standards that patients rightly expect, and we learn from it. Patient safety and the quality of care we provide are fundamental to our maternity service. Our thoughts and best wishes are with Louise and her family. We're committed to working with all our patients, and we'll continue to work with Louise on supporting her and providing appropriate resources and guidance. So one of the things that's hugely important, I'm sure, for you is being able to share your experience, share it with the hospital, and also in the hope that other mothers and parents won't go through what you've been through.
Absolutely. And, you know, after everything happened, they did do an investigation, and I did manage to have a birth debrief with them. It took me 2 years to be able to feel strong enough to do that. And we kind of spoke through some of the things that happened and where they could try to improve the care. And, you know, there are some amazing people that I have a relationship with, and I actually am still under their care because I have other problems with... I've suffered with an inflammatory bowel disease, so I have a close relationship with the gastroenterologists there. So I was there only last week, and the colorectal surgeons. And so it's sort of a stark reminder every time I go in, but also you have to have this, you know, this like blind faith in these people that are also only human as well. And I think the thing that I've learned as well is that it's not personal. That's the thing. It's not, you know, somebody... It's not me against anybody, you know? It's so trying to remove the emotion from it. I'm in a place now where I think, OK, how can I just get myself back to, I'm here, I'm at A. If I want to be at B, how do I get there?
Just do it collaboratively.
Yeah,
one of the things you've been lucky enough is to have is a fantastic family around you. And your little brother. I know, as irritating as he can be, I'm sure, growing up, he has been a real... Look, there you go. He's been a bit of a rock for you through this, hasn't he, Louise?
He has, and actually I'm so lucky that we do live next door to each other, because...
That's wicked.
Isn't it cool?
Yeah, I'd love to live next door to my
brother. Well, you think that, but it throws old real quick for Louise.
Yeah, we barricaded the wall up in between, so there's no hopping over the fence anymore.
Knocking.
Yeah,
that as well.
And he's got a key. Actually, he breaks in through... Anyway.
I'm sure he does. How's your relationship changed, actually? Because this is there are so many great big events here that happen. I'm guessing the dynamic between the two of you has kind of changed as well a little bit.
Yeah, do you know what? I mean, Louise it's funny because I've just been over there doing the bunny ears to Louise when she's getting introduced, but And that's really the only way I know how to sort of like handle stuff when it gets to that level. And but it changed a lot, I think. You know, Louise is the bravest person I know, and to have that as my sister is nuts. You know, I've never met anyone braver. I think like no one will ever know the full stuff that Louise went through. And
That's true.
I think it was I sort of welled up and actually cried a little bit where Louise had these little things dangling down from the ceiling in her house and little extracts from the book. And she was like, "Can you read the passage about you?" And I was like, "Oh, OK, fine." And I read it, and she basically was like, "He's become my big brother."
Yeah.
Yeah.
The dynamic shifted, didn't it?
That was terrifying because it's not, I don't know. But it's a weird thing when someone you love so much is in so much crisis and who you become in that moment and stuff. And Louise's partner Ryan is the absolute rock to everything. And I actually remember when you had the hemorrhage, I was at the ITV Palooza. And my mum called me and was like, "You need to get to the hospital now." And I actually snuck into the hospital, past all the guards and stuff, and just sat in a room with Ryan for like all night to find out whether Louise was going to survive. Like, it was nuts.
Well, because also, if you put yourself in that position, Ryan's there, he's got Louise on the operating table, he's got Leo somewhere else, and he's thinking that at some stage, and Leo wasn't very well when he was born either, so he's thinking he might go home from the hospital with nothing at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, how did you handle that moment with him?
It's a weird one because you lock in.
Yeah.
You really... I've never been so focused in my life, actually, when it gets that bad, you really sort of, like, steer into a completely different phase of your being. I've never really had it before, and I hope to never have it again, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But you really lock in, you become laser focused. I wasn't that emotional, actually, to be fair. I was just literally just like so on it.
Yeah.
And I've never actually been like that before. And Ryan was the exact same.
Essentially, Louise, he can be grown up if he has to.
Now I know.
Yeah, we don't want to be like that. But you know what, whenever...
But then he would come and visit me and you'd just lie on the window ledge and you'd go, "Oh, I'm so tired." And I'd be like, "Thanks, Sam."
Yeah, I'd go and moan.
Exactly, it hurts to make you laugh even at that point.
Do you know what? I did feel like there was a time where Louise obviously was going through, you know, a lot in the hospital bed. I feel like sometimes she needs the Joker in there.
Yeah.
So I'd literally just open the door, like, "Hello, clown suit zipped up," and I'd sort of try and make her laugh a little bit, which was... everyone had a different role, I think, but just to have Louise sat here now is...
It's lovely.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, we're the luckiest
It
family in the world just to have Louise still here. Oh, I'm going to cry. Yeah, we're very incredibly lucky.
And it's smashing to see your relationship. And this book is, it's a tough read, and you actually even warn the reader at certain bits, this is what's coming up, and I'm about to be very honest. But it's a great read too. Well done.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you, guys.
And thank you for putting up with him.
Yeah.
I mean...
You had him a lot longer than we
You can't
have.
pick family, can you? That's the problem.
We get to send him home at the end of the day, and he can't go with your next door.
Yeah, he seems pretty busy at the moment.
Great to see
Thank
you
you for visiting our This Morning YouTube channel. We upload new content every day, so go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out, and we'll see you in the morning.